Kendrick Perkins was asked who's the best player in NBA history to never have won a regular season MVP award, and the name that he brought up was Kawhi Leonard, saying that he's had some of the greatest playoff runs in NBA history, and he's broken up quite a few teams in the process of having some of those great playoff runs. Now, I agree with the fact that Kawhi Leonard has been a guy that maybe you would have thought would have won one MVP award at his peak, but let's be honest. It's been a lack of availability for Kawhi Leonard as to the reason why he has not won a regular season MVP award. I think he's only played 72 games twice in his career, and that's dating back to San Antonio as well as the Toronto Raptors before he got to Los Angeles and played with the Clippers. But there have been a few times in which Kawhi Leonard, you could have argued, could have won that MVP award. I think his best season was probably the year Steph Curry won it, and that was also the year that the Golden State Warriors won 73 games, won 73-9. Don't you remember that? That feels so long ago. But a lack of availability is one of the big reasons why Kawhi doesn't have it. However, this is still going to be a guy that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, whether or not he is able to win such an award as the regular season NBA MVP. But I wanted to kind of also do this exercise where we look at a few players of the modern game. So I'm going to start probably by the 2000s and go on from there to present day 2024 to some players who haven't won or did not win an MVP award in their career that I find quite surprising. Number one being that of Jason Kidd. 2002, I mean, he's traded from the Phoenix Suns to the New Jersey Nets, a team that was really trying to figure out their way. The Stephon Marbury, experiment didn't work the way in which that they wanted it to. So you bring in probably one of the best point guards of that time and also one of the greatest point guards we've ever seen in NBA history in that of Jason Kidd. And he takes an inferior New Jersey Nets team to about 52 wins on the year. He's also led that team to back-to-back NBA Finals appearances. Now, he would lose out on the MVP award to that of the San Antonio Spurs' Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan averaged about 26-12, 26-13, if I stand corrected, during that year. And you could say that he had the better San Antonio team. Heck, they won 56-58 games that year. But if we are to argue each and every year when we say one person won the MVP, but we think it should have been this individual, Tim Duncan, Jason Kidd, that 2002 year, maybe you can argue there that Jason Kidd, if everything was everything, he improved a team that without him was almost dormant. Maybe the MVP award goes to him that year. Dwayne Wade, and this is going to be a guy for me, I think when we look back at his career, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James got in the way a lot as to the reason why Dwayne Wade, even though he's still the third best shooting guard in NBA history, just my opinion, he didn't have that illustrious award as a part of his accolades. Remember, this is a guy that took a team that I believe won 15 games a year prior. He upped that to where I believe they just got under 50 wins that year. However, he would lose out that year to LeBron James. He would finish third in MVP voting that year. It would go LeBron James. I believe Kobe Bryant was in second place that year. Dwayne Wade being third. He did finish a lot of times top five in the MVP race, but if you look at that year, LeBron James and that Cleveland Cavaliers team won 66 games that regular season. So, of course, it was going to go to the king, LeBron James, one of his 4 MVP awards, regular season MVP awards that he has. But Dwayne Wade, that year, you could argue, could have had an MVP type year if he wasn't put up against arguably 2 of the top 3 greatest players of all time. Now, here's one that I did read that really interested me that I never quite thought about. Chris Paul. Isn't it interesting that he doesn't have an MVP award? And I'm talking about New Orleans, Chris Paul. Arguably, when there was that argument of who was the better point guard in the league at that time, was it Deron Williams Or was it Chris Paul? Chris Paul was leading a team that was led by himself and also David West. You remember that name? He led the league the year that many feel he should have won MVP, led the league in assists and steals, but he would be outdone by Kobe Bryant. That was his sole MVP Kobe Bryant won in the year 2008. For what it's worth, Chris Paul, during his tenure in the NBA, only 4 point guards have won the MVP award. So it's really hard to come by for the point guards in the NBA to win an MVP award. But when I talk about Jason Kidd, here's the reason why it's so interesting to me. Jason Kidd did what he did in New Jersey when the league was still dominated by the big men. Look who won the MVP that year, Tim Duncan. You also had Shaq win it a couple years prior. Allen Iverson was looked at more as a 2-guard, and he won in between those two cats. But following suit in 2004, Kevin Garnett would take home the MVP award. So it's really hard for point guards to win the MVP. You will almost have to be otherworldly to win that award. And when you look at the point guards who have won it since his time, Steve Nash, Derrick Rose, Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook. Kind of get the picture here. You need to be on that level in order to win the MVP. Chris Paul, without question, was on that level. But the Los Angeles Lakers really did have a better team surrounding Kobe Bryant that year. Unfortunately, they would lose to the Boston Celtics in 2008. But Chris Paul, surprising to me that he doesn't have an MVP on his accolades. Another guy, and maybe some people can disagree with me, Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard brought back the center position in a way, that back to the basket center and an all defensive presence. I'm saying within that 4-year window when he was unquestionably the best center in the NBA. He has multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards, was an absolute terror when it came to the defensive end of the floor, led the Orlando Magic in 2009 to the NBA Finals. But he would be outdone by a few guys himself, one of those guys being LeBron James, winning another MVP award. But Dwight Howard, I really believe during that Orlando Magic run in which he had when he was unquestionably one of the best centers in the NBA and the most dominant force in the NBA when it came to the big man position, not winning an MVP was really interesting to me. Those are my guys that I would say it's very interesting that none of those guys, aside from Kawhi Leonard in the modern day NBA, have won an MVP award or have that eluded from their accolades. Now, you look at guys like Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, John Stockton, Patrick Ewing. Of course, it is interesting to me that those guys do not have a single MVP award, especially when you look at a guy like Elgin Baylor, who dominated in a league that was dominated by two of arguably the greatest big men in the NBA, and Bill Russell as well as Wilt Chamberlain. You also had his teammate in Jerry West, who was doing that as well. Hey, he won the NBA Finals MVP, although the Los Angeles Lakers lost to the Boston Celtics. Believe he averaged just about 40 a game. I think that's what the stat line shows. That's what the record shows. So I'm not saying that these guys are number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If we're talking about the modern NBA, though, Jason Kidd, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, Dwight Howard, along with Kawhi Leonard, are probably the 5 players as of right now who it's surprising they haven't won the MVP award just yet. You're going to look at other guys and you're going to say Luka Doncic. I'm sure he's going to win some MVP awards. You may see also Anthony Edwards win an MVP. SGA came close. I think his name's going to be there once again this season to win a regular season MVP award. Hey, we may see another point guard win the illustrious most valuable player in Jalen Brunson if he's able to do what he did just this past season with the New York Knicks. But if you're telling me my 5 right now, it's definitely going to have to be those 5. Jason Kidd, Dwayne Wade, Kawhi Leonard, Dwight Howard, and Chris Paul. My thoughts, would love to hear yours.